Hello readers, I'm Amy and I'm your nonfiction feminist. Today I want to do a little bit of a book haul. Now, I haven't filmed for like 2 years. Let's just say that's a lot of books that I haven't talked about. And I'm not going to do all of that. And I probably don't even remember which ones I bought within the last 2 years. I have since gotten a new bookshelf. And just as I predicted when we moved last year, it's about the time of the year that I thought that I would maybe be needing a second bookshelf. And this is not counting husband's bookshelf, which is downstairs, and also definitely needs a brother or sister to take care of some of the extra piles that he's been getting lately. I'm going to focus on some really recent purchases as well as things that I've purchased in the last couple of months but that I'm currently reading. Let's start off with yesterday. Stephen King's books are having a release of like classic covers. I'm not entirely sure what all classic covers means because a lot of these I feel like I've never seen before, but I guess they're reviving some classic covers. This is The Dead Zone. It was a movie with Christopher Walken that was so good. It's one of the few Stephen King movies that is honestly worth watching. But I loved it so much that I've been really nervous about picking up the book, because what if the book is like really dry or something? It does have a political storyline within it, and those as books and movies just tend to not get my interest. But I have a very trusted friend who recommended a book that I am absolutely adoring say that he loved this book. So, gonna go ahead and take a chance on it. There's a guy who has head trauma. He gets special abilities. From what I remember, it's kind of a seeing the future sort of deal. But I'm excited to give it a try, and with this book cover, I kept looking at it, and I'm like, I really want that cover. Am I gonna be brave? Apparently I've decided to be brave. Another one of his movies that I actually really loved, hadn't read the book yet, was The Green Mile. I should say haven't read the book yet because I still haven't read it. We do already own a copy of this, but it's in Spanish, and my Spanish is definitely not that good. This one we're following characters who are in a prison. You've got a guy who's like new to the prison, condemned for a terrible crime, body of a man, mind of a child sort of a situation. And it's a lot shorter than I would think compared to how long the movie is. The Dead Zone is bigger than I thought it would be, which is interesting. But that's those two. And then I have one more Stephen King book because apparently it was just Stephen King Day yesterday. I have tried to read The Shining before. I think I got almost halfway through it and I was so bored. It was all character building. Nothing was really happening. I am not a fan of the Jack Nicholson movie. However, as an artist and a reader and lover and collector of books, I love a good cover. And I think this is really stunning. I absolutely love this font. And I decided for the sake of this cover, I will read this book again, or try to read this book again. Call me crazy? I totally judge books by their covers. Then this one I actually got probably over 6 months ago, but I enjoyed it enough that I want to talk about it, especially because it's an indie author. So this is Question Not My Salt by Amanda M. Blake. I believe this is possibly just published through Amazon, because I have learned, I might have learned a little bit about the Amazon publishing process recently. I don't know, maybe. Question Not My Salt. This is a great book if you're super into horror, if you like some gore, and if you want to kind of feel a bit of the holiday season. Because maybe you're able to tell from the cover, but this takes place around Thanksgiving, or during Thanksgiving. You have, I believe they're 2 roommates, and one of them doesn't really have a family to go back to for the holidays, and so her roommate is like, hey, you should come hang out with my family and I. You know, we can hang out together. So they go off to the roommate's house for Thanksgiving, and dark things ensue. It is pretty graphic. I wouldn't call it splatterpunk. It's not really extreme horror, but it's definitely more gory than I'm used to seeing with horror that I read. I won't tell you anything more, but if you kind of study some of the cover, you can probably guess what happens in a horror book about Thanksgiving. Need I say more? Also some very interesting family drama and family dynamics. Victorian Psycho by Virginia Feito, I'm going to guess. This is another one I bought several months ago. I actually listened to the audiobook in one sitting, I think. Absolutely fell in love with it. Immediately had to buy a copy. Again, a gorgeous cover. The way I've explained this to people is, not that I've read Turn of the Screw by Henry Miller. I tried to read it. The language, not it for me. It is so hard for me to understand what in the world is going on in that story, because it's that kind of less accessible classic writing. But I compare this to my idea of Turn of the Screw and what it's about, where you have a governess who is taking care of these two children, and the parents aren't really around, and mysterious things happen. This book is like Turn of the Screw if the governess gave in to every single intrusive thought that she had. It's a wild ride. It's very short. If you are looking for something that is short, horrific, and absolutely psychotic, I can't recommend this one enough. Let's do a couple more horror ones so we can kind of group them together. We have The Dead Weight by Jo Salazar. I got to meet her. We talked about how both of us have worked in residential facilities. This book is based on a residential facility. So you have this girl who is lodged with a bunch of other girls in this home. It is a locked facility, so they're not really going out and about without the adults around who manage their day-to-day. Some of the girls she gets along with, some of them she can't stand. Everyone's on meds. There are some people who don't take their meds. Such is the life of a psychiatric residential treatment facility. But in this case, this girl sneaks out with one of the others from the lodge to go up to the roof and just sleep under the stars for a night. They just want some fresh air. They go to the roof. They're not escaping or anything. But up there, something happens. They see the start of the zombie apocalypse, which I don't think is a spoiler considering what this cover looks like. Beautiful artwork, by the way. So you're trapped in a residential treatment facility during the zombie apocalypse. You have a lot of people with completely uncontrollable emotions because you're dealing with trauma and medication and being a teenage girl. This could only be chaotic, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It is young adult, so for that reason, I don't think this is a book that I will reread, but I do have some friends that I know are absolutely going to love this. I am about halfway through it, and I believe there is a second book. When I get to the end of this, I'll see if I like it as a standalone or if I feel the need to read the second one. But I am thoroughly enjoying this. There's a lot of my background in a residential treatment facility that I can really see in this book, like, oh, here's what I would do in this situation, or oh, I recognize that kind of behavior. So it's cool to see things that I'm so familiar with that not a lot of people necessarily are, and it's a fun time. So if you want to support an indie author, check out Jo Salazar. Now this one relates to horror, but I would not say it's horror. This is a collection of Bram Stoker. I absolutely love and adore Dracula. I never actually paid attention to the other stuff that he wrote, but this is a collection of his stories. It's The Burial of the Rats and Other Tales of the Macabre. I mean, look, how could I not buy it? because of this cover. This is another one that I kept seeing around Barnes & Noble, and I didn't buy it, and I didn't buy it, and I didn't buy it until I finally bought it. I have read 3 of the stories. I'd say I'm about a quarter of the way through. I really enjoyed the first one. The first story is in 3 parts, and each part has a different perspective. The second one fell really flat. I'm not going to say it was predictable. Like, it was, but it was predictable because there wasn't really much of a story there, I felt. And the third one, which I read last night, I don't actually remember. So it's not really hitting it for me. I hope that the stories get a little stronger as they go on. I might try reading his other book, The White Worm, eventually, but for now, I think I'll probably be sticking to Dracula. I'm gonna give it like a couple more stories and see how I feel. Hopefully, this gorgeous book can continue to stay on my shelves. The Year of Living Biblically. Okay, the friend that said that The Dead Zone was a really good book, that is the same friend who recommended The Year of Living Biblically by A.J. Jacobs. I grew up religious. I am not currently religious. I have no desire to ever join in religion again, but I do find it academically fascinating. I love talking to people about their different perspectives on religion. It's such an interesting topic in its history and the way it connects to society and psychology and behavior. And this book is really funny. So I actually, a long story, but I have decided to start reading introductions. Possibly my friends have bullied me into actually reading introductions because I never really have previously. I read the introduction to this. It actually opens up with a collage of photos of him growing his hair out as the year goes on, because one of the things with the Bible is that you can't really cut your hair. I'm not sure if that's the Bible in general or if that's specifically the Hebrew Bible. And he talks about that too. What version of the Bible is he going to be following here? Does he do the Old Testament? Does he do the New Testament? So he ends up with 27 different copies of the Bible, one of which is a hip-hop version that very seriously simplifies the Bible language, which is hilarious. He decides he's going to do 8 or 9 months of the year in the Old Testament, and then the end of the year he will be following the New Testament. He doesn't do every single day, but he does a lot of the days, and the days are all under a passage of scripture, whether it's like a commandment or a quick little story in a line, but they're kind of, the book is organized by ideas while still going in a chronological order. And so he's like, today I'm going to tackle this commandment, and tomorrow I'm going to tackle this other commandment, and this week I'm really going to work on doing better by these commandments that I'm kind of failing at. And it's fascinating to see him go through it. He really goes hard. He's got threads on the corners of all of his clothes to remind him of God. He starts wearing white. He got a Jewish man to come to his house and tell him which of his clothes were mixed fabrics, because you're not supposed to mix wool and linen. And it's actually that guy's job to do that, which is fascinating. I'm learning a lot about Judaism in New York, which is where this is based. And this guy's really driving his wife nuts. I could talk about this for a week and not say enough, so I'm going to call it on that for now. But if you are whatsoever interested in religion, not necessarily following it, but just learning about it, highly recommend. And actually someone on Instagram also recommended, based on that book, A Year of Biblical Womanhood, I think is what it's called, and I just got that on my Libby recently, so I'll be reading that soon. I loved that book by A.J. Jacobs so much that I got his book that he wrote before that, which is The Know-It-All, One Man's Humble Quest to Become the Smartest Person in the World. This book is about him reading the entirety of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Can you tell that this author is OCD? Which he also talks about a lot in his books. Then Mary Roach surprised me. A week before my birthday, this little book came out. It is Replaceable You, Adventures in Human Anatomy. I was recommended a podcast episode from Ologies, which I will try to remember to link down below. It is an interview with Mary Roach talking about, different points of the book. Certain male appendage is apparently replaced with a finger, and she got to see pictures of it. So if that tells you anything about this content, I'm excited. Also, a reminder, if you have not read Mary Roach before and you want to, very accessible nonfiction. She is extremely involved in the research of her books, going so far as to take part in experiments and studies herself. And don't skip out on the footnotes. The footnotes are hilarious. That's where all of her good jokes are hidden. And that's about it, I think, for my book. Oh, one more. I do have one more book to talk about. I don't have too much to say about it. It's just like this random book that I found by an indie author. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Christopher Ruíz. Yeah, he's like popping up on my Goodreads and my story graph. Apparently, this is volume 1 of a collection. Yeah, it's a very nice hardcover. It's got this soft matte cover. He signed it, which is really cool. Oh, my name's in this book. Interesting.